threatening Chicago police officers. It was a threat that the gang was more than ready to make good on.
And there's not going to be no killing without killing, gentlemen. With all due respect. Definitely not going to be any killing without killing, you know. And I would like that to be clear for the record. I understand the fact that we got police in here. I wanted you to be here to understand what I said.
The police were outmanned, and they knew it.
I don't want to waste any time. I asked the question, who are the real children of Israel? And I'd like to answer it right away.
Go ahead, dear minister.
Like any good lawyer in a courtroom, he tells you what he's going to prove.
All right.
And then he goes ahead and proves it and let the jury make the decision. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that Almighty God Allah revealed to him that the black people of America are the real children of Israel. And we are the choice of God. And that unto us he will deliver his promise.
First and foremost, giving all honor and praise to the creator of the heavens and the earth. We thank that great God for his benevolence, for his mercy, for his grace. We thank him for our ancestors in whatever form or fashion they may be found. We thank him for our founding fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We thank him for Moses and the Torah. We thank him for Yeshua and his revolutionary approach to the new gospel. And we thank him for Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah for the Holy Quran. Peace be upon all those noble, worthy servants of Almighty God. But surely if I can thank that great God of men and women I know only from Scripture, only from the books that were revealed to us, to show us an example of what was to come, I must surely be humble enough to thank Almighty God for those who he has sent to fulfill prophecy. And I could thank God over and over again for all of the men and women who he has sent. But surely I must take the time to thank those who have helped mold, shape, and form me into the man I pray one day to be. So I'm eternally grateful for the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the God that has raised him up to be that messenger, Master Farad Muhammad. I am grateful for his students, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, and the members of the Nation of Islam under his leadership. I thank him for Brother Munir Muhammad. May Almighty God be pleased with his life and his service. The co-founders of CROW, Brother Halif Muhammad, Brother Shaheed Muslim, and all of those who seek righteousness. I'm eternally grateful for God showing his favor again to send his angel to Ben Ami Hamashiach in 1966 to impart into him a vision of redemption, to return us to land, language, and culture, to turn us back to the land of Israel, the land of our fathers. I am thankful for Nasik Shaliach, that master teacher who had the insight and the foresight to take heed to what Ben Ami was teaching and to join forces together to develop the internal educational process and dedication system that would develop the minds of the future in Jerusalem. And if those two were to have a spiritual child, it will most certainly be the man who was taught, birthed me, and given me direction the man I wish one day to be. His Excellency Prince Asiel Ben Israel, the Holy Redeeming Angel. In those righteous and beautiful names, I greet you, my brothers and sisters, in the words of peace. Shalom Aleichem. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. Again, my brothers and sisters, it is always a pleasure and an honor to be amongst you, to have the opportunity to disseminate information, but to do it in a way that we can strategically implement the necessary changes that will help usher in a new era, to build off the foundation of the mothers and fathers who have preceded us, to give us the light, the guide, the exampleship on how to be not just better versions of ourselves, but to create a better world that we can leave for our children, our progeny, our descendants. I would be remiss if I don't take the time to first acknowledge the holy day of the Hebrew Israelites. And they said, Ivrit Shabbaton Zikron Tuach, the memorial blowing of the trumpets. And as I take this time, though this is not necessarily a message that's geared to the observation and the observance of that holy day in the Hebraic calendar, but it is in line with the spirit of what we are here to do. See, our responsibility of those who have understanding, who have equipped themselves with the necessary knowledge and information, have put their lives in sync with those who have dedicated their energies to the preservation of this great and noble truth, to be trumpet blowers. So every time that we speak, we must make it our duty, our responsibility to sound the horn, to sound the alarm, to let the people know what has come into existence and what is to come in the future. So whenever we see lies, whenever we see despair, whenever we see hurt, anguish, disdain, whenever we see any type of injustice taking place, we must blow that trumpet. But we're also equally responsible to have an information and knowledge and to be part of something great that allows the rebuilding of our people, the rebuilding of our communities, the rebuilding of our governments, the rebuilding of our minds. That we must blow that trumpet again to alarm or to make aware to the people that change is here, that change has come, as the late great Sam Cooke used to sing about. So again, like I said, though this is not a Shabbaton or a memorial blowing trumpet ceremonial class that I'm giving, the spirit is exact, because we are bringing in this day and time, the prophetic utterances, the prophetic example of Moses and the children of Israel, that we come out of captivity, not just in a physical sense, but in a spiritual and emotional sense. And it happens in stages. It happens in stages. So you wouldn't get everything at once. Rabbi Ben Ami, His Excellency, led the children of Israel in a physical sense, in a mental and a spiritual, in a lot of instances, out of captivity, out of America, and back into the Holy Land. But now is to take his work, his sacrifice, and the work and the sacrifices of all the men and women who dedicated their lives to their reality to the next level by cutting away, by shedding all of the unnecessary characteristics that will not produce a constructive result. So if we acknowledge, if we observe any holy day, any tradition of old, we do so in a way that it manifests a constructive benefit and a tangible result in the present moment. There's no more symbolic gestures. There's no more sackcloth and ashes symbolisms that we're going to glorify in the future, because we cannot pass on just symbolism to our children, but substance. So we want to show them in our lives that if you observe, if you practice, if you hold these days, these events in any capacity in high reverence, that you're able to see the tangible benefit in your life, and hopefully we're able to produce that same result for your children in their lives, even when you won't be present physically. So, again, as we say in the Hebrew tongue, Chag Sameach Modim L'Simcha. Now, to the message today, and it won't be a long message, but I intended on speaking on a different subject matter, but this just kept catching my attention since the last broadcast that we had last week, and I want to touch on it. And I say this is important because, this is for my real evolutionaries. I'm talking in particular to my brothers, those fearless warriors of truth, but also to those queens who are in position or will be in position to mother those next generation of warriors that is filled with the spirit of truth, the spirit of life, the spirit of justice, where we are at. And this, though I am contextualizing it from the perspective of America, do not be disillusioned or fooled, because anywhere that our people are governed under European dictates, this reality is not just relevant, but a necessity. And again, this isn't me trying to conflate ideas or concepts or to quote unquote racialize a subject matter, but to ignore the proverbial elephant in the room is only going to be a detriment to ourselves and to our future. Because the ultimate aim, the ultimate goal, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate mission is freedom, justice, equality. So if we're not doing everything we possibly can to produce that reality, then we're destroying our own selves. We're participating in our own captivity and our own enslavement. And that is something that we cannot accept no longer, not from one another or anyone else. Because remember, for people to oppress you, to outwardly oppress you, that means it has to be some inwardly suppression. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Because you can have people attempt to oppress, but unless you're suppressing the God, the truth, that fight within inside of yourself, you will never be an oppressed people. Because you will give your all to uphold, to sustain, and to protect your freedom. And that, brothers and sisters, will involve physical confrontation. That's just the reality. You cannot, listen, I'm not up here on Facebook, and we know that it is monitored by all of the intelligence agencies on the planet, in particular those here in America. I understand that the FBI was created, so the CIA, but in particular the FBI, to combat the domestic terrorists that would put in harm's way or have the ability or the capacity to dismantle America's system. So who would be that greatest and biggest threat? It would be the former slave of this land. It would be the original black man of this land and black woman of this land. You are the greatest domestic terrorist that this country sees as a true and genuine threat to their upholding of their white supremacist, satanic, however you want to coin it, form of governance and rulership that they have in this country, and we would say subsequently throughout this planet. You're the biggest threat. But the beautiful thing about knowing the reality and universal law, that nothing built on a lie, nothing built on deception, nothing built on the manipulation of a people or truth can sustain itself. You cannot build a house on a faulty foundation and then think that it has the ability to have longevity, that it has the ability to sustain itself into perpetuity. It cannot happen. It will crumble. So whether we, as individuals, see that reality in our own lives or active participants in that reality, it is ultimately going to happen. But I would implore those who have certain understanding that we're articulating at this present moment to be a participant in that reality. Because why would you put, and I speak to the men, because as men, our greatest responsibility is to problem solve. So why would you put that problem on another generation to solve when you have the ability, the capacity to solve it in your lifetime? So again, I'm not advocating violence. I would be foolish, immature, and outright insane to come on this public platform knowing that they could use this against me to falsely imprison and so forth and so on. But what I am telling you that to omit that reality and to totally eradicate that from it being any possibility is asinine. It's idiotic. It's nonsensical. And physical confrontation doesn't always mean that we use guns with knives. No, it doesn't mean that. But it's not capitulating. It's not compromising. It's not showing cowardice in those positions when those who are weaker than you have to use external means to try to subdue you. What do you do when a knife is to your throat? What do you do when a gun is to your head? What do you do when the people plan and are dropping bombs from the sky? Does that diminish the truth that you're standing on? Does that not make you want to continuously fight for your freedom or to protect your freedom if you're already in position or possession of it? Or do you relinquish it because somebody's using an external means to try to detour you from being your free, independent self? Now that comes with the mind and the spirit that must be fortified at the highest degree so that no physical means could ever take you away from your God-given right. And that's why we must create a reality that's built on truth. That's why every conversation that I have with you via this platform or any individual that I encounter, especially at this point in my life, is based on truth, because truth is the only thing that you don't never have to temper it after you put it out. See, a lie, you got to tell more lies on top of more lies and more lies, and it just gets convoluted, it gets confusing, and it gets impossible to maintain. But truth, you say it once, you put it out there, you don't have to touch it again because it stands the test of time and it has the ability. It has the ability to always be in a mode of self-preservation. Now, with that being said, the impetus for this conversation was based on last week in Compton, the shooting of 2 LA deputies. And so why am I saying that? Because they have coined this reality to be a retaliation to the murder of our brother, the 29-year-old Dijon Kizzee, who was shot riding his bicycle. He was shot on his bicycle in Los Angeles, in the city of Compton, by 2 race soldiers posing as police officers who obviously had murder on their mind. And you would think that there would be some discretion at this point with this climate, with this political atmosphere, with this racial tension, with so many examples being continuously put on national television about unarmed black men and women who have been getting murdered and slain with no course of redress, that at some point, common decency, common sense would kick in and say, hold on, let me not kill this brother who I know doesn't pose a threat to me. Because I know how to not kill people, even if they have assault rifles or handguns or any object that has the ability to threaten my life, because you see over and over again, white people who are in positions with the intent to kill and murder, and who has killed and murdered, somehow, some way be taken in alive. We spoke about this recently with the event of the young white man who went to Kenosha, murdered people, and yet and still he's still alive. We know Dylan Roof, one of the most famous, because it was so egregious. It was so blatant. It was so overt about how systematic white supremacy and racism operates. That not only did he go in and kill 9 innocent people in a church, the police officers who came to supposedly subdue arrest to remedy the situation were there ultimately to protect and serve him. Did they not put him in a bulletproof vest? Did they not take him and buy him a burger and make sure that he was nourished before they took him in? What are we saying? Now, we don't know if the gentleman was black, but it has been presented that he was, who killed or they didn't kill him, who shot these 2 LA deputies. We do know one thing for sure, that there were a group of our brothers and sisters who went to the hospital after the shooting of these 2 and wanted some answers, and was going in there really not on the course that we're here to protect the police, but we don't give a damn if he lives or dies or she lives or dies, because we're tired of you coming in our communities and killing us and there be no course of redress. We do know that. And why is that important? Now, what they don't tell you after that shooting, that on a national scale, it could be more, but I know in particular that there were 3 cops who were shot and killed just within that same week span, but because they were killed by white people, shot by white people. That's not even being spoken about at the level. It's not made a national topic of discussion, because they know white people shoot and kill white people. See, what white people, why they, the Blue Lives Matter and this whole blue wall and let's protect each other, why that is enacted is not because white society as a whole has a great reverence for the police department, for police officers. You know that not to be the case, because the black East African brother, Muslim brother who shot the white lady, he didn't get the same treatment that all the other police officers got. And he said, hey, I was feared for my life. She ran up to the window. It was dark. I couldn't see. So he shot. He thought that maybe, possibly, that reality would work for him, because, hell, all of his white comrades were able to use this and it not be no problem at all. Even if they were fired, they were weren't really fired. They were getting pensions. They were being rewarded with GoFundMes, or they would be relocated to a different district. And those are people with prior incidents of shooting and killing black people. So he couldn't have thought that that reality would happen to him because he's under that blue curtain. He's protected. And that wasn't the case at all. Back to my original point. White society does not hold police with a high reverence. But what they do hold in a high reverence is the preservation of white supremacy. The reason that police officers, especially in municipalities and cities and states to a certain extent, were created was to be a buffer between supposed radical blacks, runaway slaves, or country blacks that they would have a problem with. Again, the police department wasn't created with no altruistic perspective, with no benevolent intent. It was created solely to have an oppressive armed militia to impose their will, because they know the power that if you don't want to be a slave, that what one black man or woman can do to numbers of the multitudes of that oppressive system. Now, you have a long history and track record of black men and women who said enough is enough and I'm not taking oppression, who got physical. We talked about the Maroons. We talked about a group of Aboriginal blacks who they coined as Native Americans because they were here, who they tried to oppress, who would kill and murder any white person who even thought they wanted to try to treat them as slaves or captate them or make them captive. Pardon me. It's a history of it. This is a great book. Let me show you this right here. To Be Free. And it talks about the guerrilla warfare tactics that were used to defend themselves against white militias. Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, hey, white people they don't really want to get in a ground fight with blacks because they know they're not going to win that. So what they do is they go to the air. If you look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, we always talked about how they went and ravaged and killed and maimed and destroyed that city and killed those blacks. How did they do so? What you don't know is that the history of the Tulsa, Oklahoma was based on the reality of a black man dating this white woman and them being caught making out by a white woman, and then that white woman telling her white husband or brothers and they going to Tulsa, hey, we about to kill this nigga for dating one of our white women. And when they initially came, them brothers ran them out of there. Ran them out of there. And so what they did is because, again, we didn't have a collective centralized defense mechanism. We just had some brothers who wasn't taking nothing, even at that time. We seen that they resorted to the air. So that's when they came and dropped bombs from the sky. When they came in with the armies and set things ablaze and then started killing and murdering. Not the Ku Klux Klan. Not no fringe white nationalists or extremists. No. The everyday high and by white citizen. You got to correct that misnomer too. They give you the Ku Klux Klan in modern day. They give you the Proud Boys, or they give you the alt-right. Listen. Yeah, they all may not be equally on how they practice their white supremacy, but every white person believes in the system of white supremacy. And that's not no racial thing that I'm saying. This is me not trying to antagonize. And this is not me playing victim. I don't have no problem with that. But for us to be naive and think that's reality does not exist. See, no. If we don't have a great example or a better example than just how the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, both have systematically and systemically dismantled every institution of black empowerment in their own way throughout history, both saying that they aren't racist, both saying that they don't believe wholeheartedly in the system of white supremacy, yet and still none of their programs, none of their plans, none of their agendas are ever to empower black people as a whole. They give you concessions that have nothing to do with you being in a position to do for self. So they throw other things at you. Hey, have a core black women. Let's lift you up against the black man. Me, I'm pitting you against one another. Here, let's make the LGBT trans thing a reality, but not systematic white supremacy and racism. Let's not talk about how black men are murdered in rates that don't even compare to any other so-called citizen of these United States. But of course, to make you strong again means the black woman be strong subsequently and the black child. That means you have a family. That means you have the basis for a nation. If you have a group of strong families, that means it's almost impossible not to raise up a nation. And to raise up a nation, in their eyes, would be the antithesis to their reality. That's something they can't afford. So, what am I saying? The reason why this point has been emphasized is because we see that they are afraid again of that radical black man and woman who refuse to just be murdered and not do anything about it. Look at Haiti and the Haitian Revolution. Dessalines, Bookman, even Toussaint Louverture to a certain extent. And all of those men who were part of that revolutionary and women who were part of that revolutionary process that allowed them to be a free and independent nation. They studied the Haitian Revolution and they made sure that in America and other Western European powers, that no person from Haiti was ever to reach their borders for at least 100 years. Two, they cut them off, put sanctions, or made sure that at least anybody that was under their governorship didn't have the ability to have trade and commerce with them, split up the island, and started contextualize mentally and emotionally and spiritually what they call the present-day Dominican Republic, to hate their blackness to such an extent that not only do they not see themselves as black, but they had such a hate and disdain for their very brother and sister who they shared the same island with, because that revolutionary spirit couldn't hit those brothers and sisters and they still stay in power. You look at the revolutionary churches. You look at these brothers and sisters, Denmark, Vesey, Nat Turner, they were all spiritual men of God, even contextualized by white Christianity. But when they got that resolve, when they got that spirit, they couldn't be slaves anymore. And they knew whatever it took, they were willing to do. They were willing to do. I opened up by playing a short clip for those who've seen it. You go look at the playback. It was Jeff Ford doing Shalom, Shalom, Mighty Minister. He was showing I was showing a press conference with Jeff Ford, Chief Malik of the Black Peace Stone Rangers. And now you can feel whatever you feel about it, but what he said for me was instrumental. He got on and he made a public announcement, press conference to the police department of Chicago. And he said, there won't be any killing without any killing. Now, the original gangs, not before they got bastardized and compromised, were not gangs to distribute drugs, to create crime, murder, and subjugation. Absolutely not. They were protective forces that were spawned out of that revolutionary aspect of the civil rights. A lot of it mirroring the Nation of Islam and things of that nature, to protect their neighborhoods, to protect their communities. That's when you've seen the drug epidemic be ramped up and other things to dismantle that reality. But you had a group of black men and women who made it their reality to say, hey, enough is enough. And when you have a black man at a young age as he was, go in front of one of the greatest cities here in these United States of America, which seems to be the premier power of the planet, with Papa Daley, who ran the city like a pharaoh in the 60s and 70s, late 50s, say that, hey, if your police officers kill us, there will be an eye for eye. Now, however you feel about that, for a man to take that sense of pride in the protection of his community, protection of his people, that he would risk his life, sacrifice his life, and even take life to show his sincerity, should be commended. Because at some point, again, this is not me glorifying murder. We are peaceful people, but we would never be the aggressors. But if we are provoked, we will defend ourselves. It is our God-given right to defend ourselves, to stand up and to protect one another, to protect ourselves, and most importantly, protect our children. Because if you are a parent, and matter of fact, if you are an adult and you see any child being taken advantage of, or even up to the point that they're murdered or killed or slain, and you do nothing about it, your life does not have any value. I'm talking to the men out there. How can we sit aimlessly by and let our children be murdered? You can pick any animal in the animal kingdom and see if they live like that. Hell, you can go look at the insects, and they have the foresight, the insight, the mindset to protect their larvae, their eggs. So how, as black men, the original, the gods of the earth, you have lost that desire to protect your offspring? Meaning you don't see any value in your own life because you can't protect your extended self. And you see why nobody respects you. Not your women, not your children, and damn sure not the world. So it's time that we look at these things in another light. So again, I don't want to be long, but I want to say these key things. I was going to go and I was going to read examples of throughout history. Whether you look at MOVE, and that was such an atrocious act that happened in Philadelphia, similar to Tulsa, the second time where American governments and municipalities dropped bombs on their own supposed citizens within their own state confines. Philadelphia Police Department dropped bombs on this black group that were living unto themselves, not causing harm or pain to anybody else. But the thing is, you can't be free inside of captivity. You can't be on the plantation and think that the slave master who owns the plantation won't try to have dominion over your life. So I say this, and this is my point. You're absolutely right, Master Teacher. Shidoshi Mikael. We gotta stand up for each other. we have a thorough history of our brothers and sisters standing up for truth, standing up for one another, standing up for what's right, standing up for the dynamics of implementing our freedom. We have a history of that, but it's always short-lived. Part and parcel of the problem is the reality is that we, in pardon the cheap expression, that we want our cake and we want to have our cake and eat it too. Meaning that we want to fight or we want to remove or dismantle this oppressive state, this satanic state, but we want to do it within the confines of being in this oppressive state, in this satanic state. You cannot coexist with evil if you intend to be righteous. Well, that's hyperbole. What's evil? What's evil? You got to contextualize this. It's too vague. It's too vague. Well, I'm going to tell you what evil is. Evil is a system that's built on lies and deception, meaning it does not have the capacity, it does not have the ability to have longevity. It cannot sustain itself. Evil is predicated on a people taking advantage openly and willingly and outwardly of another people. Evil is a system that has been supposedly evolved or progressed through injustice. It's evil. When you cut off all the life support systems of the planet, when you weaponize the very things that are supposed to keep us alive. Food was created to sustain the body, sustain the life, to give energy, to recharge our physical temples. But yet it has been weaponized to be the very instrument that has brought on our demise. And now you see why black men are dying at exorbitant rates from high blood pressure, from hypertension, from diabetes, from kidney failure, so forth and so on. Every cancer you can think of, morbid obesity. Through the very instrument that was used to sustain our lives has been the thing that has taken away our life. Think about how sex has been weaponized. The act, which is a righteous and holy and sanctified act of procreation to reproduce oneself, not just physically, but spiritually and mentally, has been used that we have been put in a cycle that we see so much obscene and vulgar things that we're desensitized to the righteousness of the act, and we lust and get addicted to the physical act up until the very point where we do it to anything or anyone, even to the point where we take the essence from our women or men, and we have fallen to such a state that we even do it to children. It's been weaponized. It's been weaponized. Think about the educational process. Think about the educational process. Things that train you to dedicate yourself to advance your way of life, your culture, to build, to develop, to evolve your life and the lives of those who you are in company with. To make the planet a better place, we have been retrained to think that we are lesser than, and the inventions or the things that we concoct are always more detrimental. How the hell are we making bombs that can destroy the world 100 times over, when we have hundreds of millions of people who don't have the ability to feed themselves on a continuous basis, don't have homes to live in, don't have pure water to drink, but we can make weapons that can kill or shoot a person from hundreds of meters in the sky with pinpoint accuracy? See, everything has been weaponized. So my message and my intent is that, yes, we must be willing to defend ourselves at all costs, even if it means that taking the life of our aggressor, that those who try to take the lives of our babies. But we also have to kill inside of us that same spirit that wants to be connected to this world, even though we know it has no benefit. Are you willing to kill that? Are you willing to remove that and destroy that decadent mind that has permeated with us for hundreds of years? That's why I said this Shabbaton, this Yom Kippur that we're into, all of these holy days, whether you celebrate the Hebraic calendar or the Muslim calendar or whatever, if you don't celebrate none of it, what are we putting into practice that produces the necessary change? Are we using these concepts, these ideas, not just for sacrificial and superficial means, but we use them for transformative means that it takes us or puts us in a better place than we were before we went on that endeavor? This is me blowing that trumpet. This is me blowing that trumpet. So yes, as we look throughout history and we see those brave men and women stand up and do what it takes in a physical way, when are we going to bring it all together and have those men do the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the social, the emotional protection of the life support systems that will allow us to be a free people and to protect and to preserve our freedom into perpetuity? What does it mean to be free? What does it mean to be free to you? See, all the cards are on the table now. They have been shown. And you can tell by the aggressive nature of these people. See, this is the beautiful thing about the times that we're in right now, is that all things have been revealed. That's why it said 2020 would be the year of perfect vision. Everything was brought to the light. Yes, murder, mayhem, white people killing us, police officers killing us. It's been happening before. It's been happening 100 years. But now we're at the point where there is no blurriness of the reality of what's going on. Because if this COVID and this year has done anything in particular to the masses of the planet, it has shown the black man and the white man alike, hey, you ain't really free either. See, the white man was able to go, that middle class or that middle tier white man, especially that low class white man, his thing was that, you know, I'm free. But now he's seeing he's not free. You heard William Barr in Trump's cabinet say, well, COVID and these restrictions is the most oppressive since slavery. They're likening it unto slavery, which is a false correlation, which is a false equivalence, and super disrespectful. But hey, what you expect the devil to be disrespectful? I mean, to be respectful? Nevertheless, but to him, he was being sincere. So he's shown that he's not free. So how does he get whatever sense of power that he feels he has? It's by exercising it on you and I, by having the ability to kill us with impunity. That's his semblance of power. So that's why they hold it on that more than anything. So that's why you're going to see this thing explode even to greater extents, not just here in America, but all over the planet. All over the planet. Look at London. Look at France. Look at those northern African countries where Arabs have dominated for the last 150 years. Look at Israel. Yeah, they're putting their own people on quarantine and restricted laws. Up until just yesterday for 3 months, or 3 weeks, 3 weeks. Who do you think they're going to take that? They're not going to take it out on, at least not initially, on one another. They're going to find whatever African or former African American they can to exercise their freedoms. That's what the movie Purge was about. Well, these are your freedom. It's your God-given right. It's your nationalistic right. You can purge. Matter of fact, it's a law. You have to purge. We're in that reality. We got to wake up. But again, what are we going to do? And that's why I'm going to end this now. I said that you cannot build a house that will stand on a faulty foundation. A world based on lies and deception, murder, mayhem, disdain, hate, injustice will not have its ability to stand. My baby girl, come here, sweetie. It's my baby girl. This is what we're doing it for. And so, before I close down, hold up, booby. Before I close down, I want us to understand this. And I want us to understand this well. If we do not, and that's why I thank Ben and me, I'm eternally grateful for Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all of those men, the Noble Drew Ali's, the Marcus Garveys. I mean, we can go on and on and on. But I say those two first because those who are the ones who are responsible for my growth and development, alongside my father, alongside Brother Munir, alongside Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who've developed and has taken me to another level, I say that because we have to create a reality that is totally sanctioned on truth, on justice, on freedom. And we cannot be afraid no more to be a free people. See, we are so frightened and fearful and petrified by the idea of being on our own. Until we have the ability to kill that nignitude, that ignorance, that cowardice, that slave mentality, we will never see a better world. Not for ourselves and not for our children. You're not supposed to live in peace with a people whose whole sole purpose is to cause death and destruction. You're not supposed to. So wipe that from your mind. And even those who may look like you, who perpetuate a reality of hate and disdain or confusion, you can't live with those people either. But that's the beauty of it. See, tribalism is a beautiful thing if your tribe is based on truth. And so let that be the reality of how we move forward. So again, and I close on this. You cannot run from the reality of the physical confrontation that is taking place and that will continue to take place and that will be exacerbated and amplified to levels that have been unseen and unprecedented to this time. But you will also have to be prepared for the fight internally, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Because if I just held my little daughter, I have to think about her life and the lives of her children that I'm responsible for, even at this present moment. And that, brothers and sisters, especially brothers, has to be our leading thought. Nothing else should matter more than creating a world that they don't have to worry about all the iniquities that we have to face now. Why pass on a problem to another generation when we can solve it now? I thank you for listening. As I leave you in the words of peace, shalom alaikum, assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. Shop Black Royalty, blackroyaltyware.com, blackroyaltyware.com. Please buy your movement, because real quick, it's all going to the reality that we're starting. And starting next summer, we're starting a training program for young men between the ages of 10 to about 16, where we're going to teach them, show them, not just the physical trainings of building their body up, martial arts, but teaching them integrity, teaching them ethics, teaching them the proper principles on how to conduct themselves, how to articulate themselves, how to study, basic principles in finances and investment, and creating ingenuity. So this is a program that we're putting together. It's going to take about 10 months to really iron down. But if you have, I don't care what, it's non-denominational. So these principles are universal. Having proper etiquette, how to be respectful. See, we have to retrain our young gods again, our young black men to be gods. And for those who don't have the ability, maybe single mothers, whatever the case may be, or just need another environment to reinforce it, we're developing that. And so I always wanted to start a school, but I want to start here first, that school is always in session. So be looking for that in the near future. So I thank you again. This time I'm done. Shalom Aleichem.
Mogul and they know that. Logo on my flow mat. Courtside Chamberlain throwback match my Rolex. Everywhere.